So there seems to be this delusion that if this subject is somehow understood, or if I learn the right things about it, then I will I will be further than others. Then I will have some better quality of life. And there's a lot of delusion around the way this subject gets talked about. It's it's unfortunate because it's really the one opportunity to talk about something that doesn't really have anything to do with the outside world in a way. Um, that gets to the heart of everything. So then to have these hindrances there, which are just due to misunderstandings and ultimately insecurities, really, is a shame. So in having conversations about this, the, the things that are really a hindrance are the misinterpretations of this subject. The hindrance is to really living in a relaxed way, in a free way, to return to our original nature, if you like. That's the hindrance to that are these mistaken ideas about non-duality. If I mean in the context that we're engaging with the subject, listening to videos and speakers and so on. So the misinformation is a lot, first of all. So there's like constant misguidance. And then we actually miss the juice of the matter by seeing things in a kind of a categorical way, in a defined way, in a fixed way. Whereas the words that are spoken, they only have a usefulness in that moment. Of course, if later someone watches back a video and there's something useful again there, then that's nice too. It can be refreshing and clarifying, but that again, that's just in that moment itself. So to have some dogmatic determination about these things is completely misguided. So the things that we think are hindrances, like the self, for example, are really not. Or that we think trauma or trauma seems to be a big one. Or somehow that I'm too materialistic because if I should sort of eat more organic food and recycle more, then I'll be closer to spirituality. Yeah, all these things. It's the mistaken ideas that get in the way. So we actually put things in the way ourselves. There's nothing to get, and even when it's said that like things are whole or abundant just as they are, then still we seem to have this probing thought or look like, I must be missing the essential thing. I must be missing the spark that would, if I could only see it, then suddenly I would see everything as abundant. And that's not what that is, because really just things just exactly as they are, that's already abundant. If we then come with, oh yeah, but what about suffering? What about war? And what about torture and all this stuff? Then that's something we've laid over things. We don't know what's actually going on there. If we see what we call suffering in the world, we don't really actually know what's going on there. And to the extent that we have this image of ourselves that we are somehow for social justice, and we are so good, and we are so righteous, and we care about people suffering and all that, to the extent that we have that going on, we won't see, because we are so in love with that image of ourselves as good and as liberal or friendly or loving or peace loving or whatever you want to call it. It's an image we have of ourselves. So the natural state doesn't need any images, but the accumulation of images like that, the good one, the shit one, the one who can't get anything done, the one who gets everything done, who is so effective and efficient, the hero of this, that, or the other. All these accumulations of self-images, that's what you could call the false self. It's an accumulation of descriptions about ourselves that we then make. It's because we think about them so much, or rather we give them so much energy. This is how I'm going to construct my life. We create the seeming we create a seeming entity, whereas the actual natural state of things is a flow, you could say. But to differentiate, oh, it's important to see it as a flow rather than an entity. No, that's getting pedantic about this whole no self discussion. It's not that. It's when when we talk about no self, the only way in which that is true is that there are no images of it. It's so completely subjective. Like, say, I'm looking outward, but I don't have any perspective on myself. I have senses. I feel what's going on. I feel the temperature. I feel the emotions. I feel my senses of that enable me to function in the world. Yeah, my sensitivity. But there's no need for any images of myself. So I'm not gazing on myself. It's like an outward. There's just a seeing, you could say, which is a process. So there's actually no need for to see anything as an entity. So yeah, back to the discussion from earlier. To see, to the extent that I see myself as so many good things or bad things, to that extent I won't be open to see what's really going on. For instance, with what we call suffering, war. Why do wars happen? Why does torture happen? Why do like unspeakable things, horrors? Why do they happen? We've never really inquired into it. We think we know. At least we join in the fight, and we're very committed to, living in a environmentally friendly and socially responsible way, and blah 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 blah. What that is really, okay, there is of course a natural sensitivity that I'm not going to leave the tap running for ages, or uh, not care what I put into my body, or there is a natural sensitivity that if I can recycle things, and it's a nice thing. Why not? Like, to be able to use plastic, which is otherwise just going to be buried in the earth, and make some new things from it. Fantastic, great idea. But there's a limit to that. Like, if it's just our natural sensitivity, that's one thing. Same goes for any kind of activism. If there can be activism that comes from the heart, but in many cases, probably in most cases, I would say, it comes from an attitude of pride. I'm I care much more about the image of myself and how I will look good than I do about my cause. That's the ruse, the self, the not being honest with ourselves, and that's everywhere. That's everywhere. That's the world of ego. It's this lack of honesty, really. People talk about depression and this kind of and that kind of feeling unhappy and unsatisfied and all that. But to what extent do we actually like this situation? To what extent are we actually attached to it? Because it gives us some kind of attention, maybe it gives us sympathy, it allows us to keep thinking about ourselves and so much, so much, so much. It's like an addiction, really. Self pity plays a huge part in that, like, oh my God, I'm so misunderstood and nobody suffers as much as I do and all this stuff. So, yeah, this is the stuff that seems to me that's valuable to see those things going on. And they go on in this discussion of non-duality as well. That topic is full of, as soon as you see some kind of dogmatic, pedantic insistence on a certain way of expressing this, on a certain form of this, and that's like the right one and it's the true one, then you already know it's suspicious. Life is meant to be lived relaxed and enjoyed and lived to the fullest. Like, what does that mean? What place, if you think about the energy that those words evoke, like living life to the fullest and in a relaxed way and in a kind of a content way, and where's the place in that for the kind of breakthrough that we think we're going to get if we could only see that there's no self, for example, yeah, or that's in non-duality terms, or all these wonderful images about ourselves as being good and righteous and being so fervently for justice and social well-being. Yeah, we care so much about other people in society and those who are suffering and so on, and we don't actually see that those projections that we make, they make things worse. um, the images we have are ourselves, because it's self-seeking, because it's self-centered, because it's egotistical, because it's arrogant, and because it's prideful, it actually makes things worse. It multiplies what we think we're actually lingering.